Good afternoon. My name is Mike Panesis. I'm the Chairman Emeritus of Tech Coast Angels, the largest angel investing group in the country. I also run an entrepreneurship center for Cal Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks. This isn't about virtual reality per se, but raising money sometimes feels like virtual reality. Quick show of hands, how many people are involved with a tech startup right now, either working for one, and how many of you are raising money right now? So a fair amount. How many of you are here because you thought we maybe brought our checkbooks and, okay. You guys keep your hands raised. We just want to remember who you are when it's over. I'll leave it at that. We have a very distinguished panel for you today. We actually kind of have the whole cycle of fundraising, from helping you get started to the exit on the other end. So I'm going to ask our panel members to each introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is David Ajalat. I'm an emerging companies attorney with Cooley. At Cooley, we help startups, people that just came up with an idea, become Facebook, who we also represent. We help you get your Series A financing, we help you get your B round and your D round, and we'll help you IPO or exit with an M&A event. We're really excited about VR, and we have several VR companies, many of whom are here today, one of whom I may be wearing a shirt. And we love going all in with our clients. We love becoming part of the companies. We love joining them in the business, and we're really excited to be here today and part of VRLA. So thanks for having us.
My name's Clinton Foy, and I'm a recovering attorney and current venture capitalist. Early stage venture capital investor at CrossCut Ventures. We're based here in Los Angeles, in Venice Beach, and we have about a $100 million fund, and we're focused on games, e-commerce, content, mobile, and software as a service. And basically, we're just opportunistic. I hate to say that we're mercenary, but we like to make money for our investors, but we also like to just fund cool companies and work with really great entrepreneurs who are just looking at the future. And I truly do believe that VR is the future. So that's why I'm here. Would love to meet all of you. And also, I'd like to point out that one of my colleagues is in the audience, Joe Guzell. He's actually the guy you should be talking to. He gets stuff done at the office. And there's also some other VCs in the front row over here, too.
Wow. I'm Sutha Kamal. I do technology strategy over at Technicolor. I am historically an entrepreneur. Had the fortune of starting a couple of companies, having a few exits, which has been a lot of fun, and sort of still fancy myself the entrepreneur. These days, I'm mostly an angel investor instead of being an entrepreneur. At Technicolor, we care a whole lot about VR. So 100 years ago, Technicolor invented color filmmaking, and ever since, we've been helping storytellers tell their stories. And we think the next 100 years of stories are going to have a few new kinds of ways to tell those stories, and we're really excited about figuring out, who are the companies and the people that are going to drive that growth of storytelling. And we do everything from a ton of research to venture investing to M&A to owning the world's biggest visual effects studio, which is doing a ton of great stuff in VR today. So whether it's whatever I can do as an entrepreneur, as an investor, or whatever, love to chat and help.
My name is Jeff Wasson, and I'm a partner at Boost VC. I'd like to thank VRLA. Great job, fantastic to be here. I'd like to thank AMD as a sponsor. And I guess the Los Angeles Convention Center. I don't know that anybody does that, but it's been a great event. So if anybody's here, thank you. You stole my line. I'm a recovering entrepreneur, I tell people. Right now, I'm a partner at Boost VC, and we are a seed stage fund and accelerator. So we invest in really early stage companies and emerging technologies. We have a program in San Mateo that we run companies through about the 3-month program. It's an investment of money. We provide housing, office space, a great mentor network. We provide speakers every week, some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley. And we work a lot with our limited partners and co-investors to make sure that our seed stage companies move on up the funnel. So right now we have 18 virtual reality companies in our portfolio, and we're looking for more. So if you're an early stage company and want to talk, I'll be here after the panel.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So you've got a very experienced panel here. I'm gonna start with a point of reference. So we're here talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, from an investor's perspective. What's different about investing in these technologies compared to maybe some other investments you've made?
Yeah, I'll take that. There's no customers in virtual reality, which is interesting. In augmented reality, there are enterprise customers, but there's no platform play. So if you create an augmented reality solution for enterprise, I think that, and we've seen a number of companies have been very successful while doing that. Right now, I feel like there's a rush in virtual reality from startup companies because of the great work that's been done from a platform perspective. There is an opportunity to build on top of that and eventually, hopefully soon, reach millions of customers.
So Jeff, a follow-up question, because you answered my next three questions altogether, which was good. You used the word platform a couple of times. Can you tell us a little more about what you mean by a platform?
So sort of the infrastructure layer being set from Oculus, HTC, Sony, Samsung Gear, Google Cardboard, that allows people to build other applications and businesses on top of it. And with the not necessarily the death, but maybe the pause of Google Glass, there's not the same opportunity to build at least consumer applications at this moment.
Okay. So go ahead.
I was going to say, so I think, I don't know that I agree. So I think there's, one of the cool things about AR and VR is that there's a lot of industries like e-commerce where there's not a lot of hard technical problems to solve anymore. Like it's really kind of at the top of the stack. And I think what's really cool about AR and VR is that there's problems at both edges, right? So you've got Magic Leap solving really hairy problems around display technology. You've got the graphics guys figuring out how to render things orders of magnitude faster, like at the silicon. And then you've got, like, what the hell do we do with that, right? What are the games? What's the content? What's the user experience? And so I think what's really cool is it's a space that has all of these things. On the AR side, I think I agree with part of it. I think I'll share a thesis. If any company here is building this, please tell me, because I've been dying to invest in a company. AR doesn't have an operating system, right? So the operating system for virtual reality is the game engine. It is Unity, it is Unreal, it is whatever. Augmented reality doesn't have an operating system. There isn't a way that you can build an app that goes in and says, tell me what's in this room, and go build stuff on top of it, right? So I think there's a really interesting opportunity for a platform play there, because AR is, like, VR is a cool interface. AR is, I think, fundamentally different. It is the next wave of computing, like, full stop. And for that, I think there is a huge architectural shift that comes.
So first of all, anybody have a VR operating system in the audience?
AR.
AR. Damn it. We got one in the back. But we got two.
Really? Come find me.
I have a lot of people are going to build it since you just said you're going to invest in it.
So it sounds like AR now, VR still looking out into the future. Is that fair?
The other way around. So
the other way around?
VR is today. So in the first half of next year, we'll have a ton of cardboards. We'll have HTC devices. We'll have Facebook devices, Oculus devices. We'll have Sony Morpheus. Those will all be real and in market. You know, Magic Leap, anyone's guess, whether that's like 5 years away or 2, but it's not 6 months, right? There's a bunch of cool companies like Meta. They're doing stuff with augmented reality glasses. You know, to the point earlier about the pause, at least, of Google Glass. Like, the devices that exist for augmented reality today kind of suck, right? The graphics are not very good. The experience is not very good. They're good enough that if you're building a mission-critical enterprise application, you can force people to suffer with it, but none of us would use it in our normal lives. VR is the opposite.
Okay. So what else? Anything else from maybe Clinton? Do you look at VR, AR companies differently when you're evaluating them?
So, I mean, to be honest, we're seeing mostly VR companies out there right now. I mean, to echo what these gentlemen said, I think VR is coming to market quicker than AR is, but I think AR has massive opportunity down the road and in the future, especially for things like enterprise. And I think that, you know, my background is really in games and in interactive. I was the COO of a publicly traded Japanese video game company for a while. We did Final Fantasy and Tomb Raider and Space Invaders back in the day. It's called Square Enix. So I love content. Yeah, I love content. It's it's what I really love doing and spending my spare time with, and I'm kind of geeked out on that. But at the same time, I also am really interested in the tools and the engines around what's building VR and AR as well. So that's something that gets me excited as an investor, is not just the content that's getting created on this, but the actual tools, engines, the picks and shovels of building the next metaverse, I think is going to be interesting.
That's back to the platform.
It is.
So we're still at a stage where we're looking for platforms. Okay, we'll give David a question. So, how important is IP to VR and AR companies?
Yeah, I don't think that IP is any different for a VR company than any company, and you know, there's a lot of litigation going on right now that a lot of people have heard about. One of them is involving Oculus, right? And how do you protect your IP, but how do you protect you know, your ownership? What happens when you form a company? You know, some of you may be in this room thinking that you have a great idea, and you're talking with a friend about it, and maybe you want to go in on it together. You know, at that moment, maybe you have a partnership and you own that 50-50, and maybe that person ends up leaving or contributing to your IP somehow, but you don't get them to sign the right paperwork, right? So legal can be really integral and important to this process, and it doesn't really matter if you fail, right? But if you succeed, the bigger and bigger and bigger you get, the more making sure things were done right in the first place becomes really important, right? Because that lurking founder, that person you talked to for a couple seconds about an idea and spun ideas off of, and maybe you were partners, right? That person's not going to come back if you fail. But when you become Oculus and you get $2 billion, they're going to come around and say, hey, that's my IP. I own that company. I have a quarter of it. I have 50%. So I think it's critical for everybody, but especially in this industry where everybody's so excited. Everybody's just spinning ideas off each other. Everybody's collaborating, which are all great things. Just make sure you're collaborating smartly, right?
And are there instances where maybe you don't need a patent so much as to keep quiet and work in stealth mode and keep trade secrets? Is it any more important in this sector than in applying for a patent instead?
Well, I'm not an IP lawyer, so I can't
Okay.
really speculate on that. But I think that, again, it's just the one thing that makes this interesting is it's kind of like a simmering pot. Like the content hasn't popped yet. Nobody really knows what anybody's doing. Some people are coming out and saying what they're doing, but there's definitely something to be said for stealth mode. I don't think necessarily that filing for patents would ruin that, and I definitely encourage people that think that they have patentable material to file for patents. But I don't know that VR is any different than any other world, other than there's a lot of stealth mode going on.
Okay, thank you.
The advice that I've always given startups, for what it's worth, and I think it's the same in VR, is your patents don't matter to you, right? You're a startup, you'll never be able to sue anyone, it's just way too costly. The patent might matter to the acquiring company, right? The company who acquires you might say, oh, we have the ability to defend this patent or exploit this patent, and it's really important to us. So I think, to your point, like if there are things that are really, really differentiable and you think they're worth patenting, fine, go do it, but don't do it under the illusion that that patent is in and of itself valuable to anyone yet.
Thank you. Okay, let's come back to something Jeff said right out of the gate, because when I was making notes for this panel, it was one of the first things that occurred to me too. VR is a technology, but it's not necessarily a business. So, and it seems like we're very much in the infancy of figuring out how we're going to make money from this technology. Any insight or advice for this group on how we how you might make money from your VR or AR startup? Is it all about the hardware, or is there a subscription model here that makes sense? Or?
Sure. So I think that's really a two-part question. How do you make money in VR, and when do you make money in VR? I think the when, we just don't know. It's very difficult to say. But how? I think that there are business models that are very similar to what we see today. There certainly are subscription models. Certainly are game developers who are going to sell games, just like they have on every other platform. There will be social VR that allows millions of people to connect together doing different things, and advertising models, which, by the way, I haven't seen an advertising model or network in VR. And I understand it's too early, but it's not too early to start building it. So I think that would be interesting as well.
I'm looking forward to the ad blocker.
The ad blocker in VR, yeah. But it's a killer
I
technology.
want like a selection of weapons, and I want them to pop up. And
You can pay a little more and we won't run ads for you.
What industries stand to benefit from VR the most, do you think? So we've got the platform, and platforms are built to be pervasive in the kind of cross-cut industries. And aside from entertainment, which I think everybody sees, are there any industries where you think this kind of technology is going to resonate the most? And maybe dive down into the enterprise, what that means a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so VR has been around in the enterprise for a long time, right? If you're Boeing or you're Ford, you have supercomputers that do what we now expect on our desktops in an Oculus. So I think a lot of that is taking the stuff that's only made sense to use VR if you had millions of dollars for that VR application and making it, go downstream further and further and further. So, today Ford models all of their cars in VR, and people stand around their cars in VR and they tweak it and they open the hood and they do stuff. That's going to go down to bicycle makers, right? That get to do that stuff. Training and education is one that I think a lot about. Like, imagine being able to perform open heart surgery 100 times and have 100 different things go wrong each of those times, so that by the first time you've ever actually cut someone open, you've seen it all before, right? Architecture is already a place where visualization is starting out, right? You're going to spend like hundreds of millions or billions of dollars building an enormous building. Gee, what's it going to look like? Let me walk around the floor plan. Let me go and check it out. So I think what's really cool is VR allows you to teleport somewhere, right? And that somewhere can be real or imagined. The things in it can be real or imagined. And so I think we're going to use it in practically every industry.
So it's going to be that pervasive.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
when you see, I think what's really cool is today you see these really great high-end demos of VR, and they run on a big computer plugged into an Oculus headset. And that seems like a big deal, but remember the alternative was $1 million box, just a couple of years ago. And then imagine 2 years out where, your phone has as much compute power as your laptop did a couple of years ago. And so when you drop your phone into a cardboard or gear-esque holder, you've got all of that compute power. And so now I don't have to be the VR nerd. I can just be a normal exec that cares about whatever. And when it's time for me to see a VR simulation, I drop my phone that's in my pocket anyway into a little device, and I'm there. So yeah, I think it's going to be that pervasive.
Okay, thank you. So let's go back to talking about the topic of this panel, which is raising money. Is this, where would you suggest starting? For someone who's just starting out, they've maybe got an idea, they're maybe working on a minimum viable product, but how do you get started raising money?
Yeah, you come see me.
Yeah.
And we're at the beginning of the funnel. And we understand our place in the ecosystem. A lot of the bigger VCs do a lot of due diligence from a technical perspective. They understand the product market fit before they put in Series A, Series B type money. But we invest in companies that have some prototype, working prototype. Traction helps. But it's really about the team, not necessarily their background, but their ability to do it and their passion to get it done. So either that, or it's, I guess it's friends, family, fools, and Boost VC. So
I think the ecosystem is pretty broad for raising money these days, and I think it's vastly different than it was 10 years ago. In that, I think you've got your friends and family. I mean, your current circle of friends and high net worth individuals you can tap in your network. That's going to be the easiest money that you raise and the friendliest money you raise. And then you could even go to crowdsourcing, for instance. So you can go to Kickstarter, you can go to Indiegogo, and that's going to be fairly friendly, non-dilutive money that you could bring in. And then you can go to the accelerators, the incubators, and then you have the early stage VCs, more where we fit in. And then you have strategics and later stage VCs who sometimes dip down earlier into the ecosystem of funding. So it's that entire ecosystem, and that didn't really exist, I think, in the same kind of scale that it has before. So it's interesting, and I would encourage everybody to start as early as possible with your friends and your family and angels, and to get a prototype or something up and going, and not just a PowerPoint presentation, and not just hey, I'm raising money over a friendly coffee. Just we see a lot of those, but none of them are really compelling unless you're a repeat entrepreneur who's done it 3 or 4 times, and at that stage you might not even need to raise money.
So in the case of VCs, would you recommend? Do your portfolio companies come to you at first, or do you find them? Is it more important to be cold called, or to just execute and you'll find the better companies?
So for us personally at CrossCut Ventures, we get a large amount of our deal flow through referrals. So through some of our investors or some of our repeat entrepreneurs or just people in our network. So Sonny Dillon from Signia Ventures over here, or Tipatat, or some of these guys on the panel, or some of our attorneys might call us up and say, hey, we're working with this entrepreneur. They're really interesting, top tier team. I think you should really take a meeting with them. So we will. I have to say, very rarely have we funded a company where we'll just get a cold call. It's generally a warm intro. For some reason, that seems to qualify the deal a little bit more and get us more interested in it through some kind of social or professional connection.
And I'll add, it's the same way for angel investors. You can apply for funding at techcoastangels.com. We get 600-700 applications a year. We don't see many VR applications yet. But the entrepreneurs we fund, we generally know before they submit the application. Right. And that doesn't mean find a VC or an angel on LinkedIn, send them a connection request, and if they accept it, assume you're best friends. It's not necessarily straightforward. Executing is very important, but also networking. Reality is going to events and meeting people, and networking that way makes it a huge difference.
I think everybody knows that raising money is hard, but I don't think they realize how hard it is, right? So we tell most of our companies that, look, if you want to raise money, you need to start now if you want it a year from now, right? Because the likelihood is it's going to take you at least 6 months. The strange thing about VR is it's stuck in like a pre-seed stage, right? So you have all of these companies that are looking for $1 to $2 million, but nobody's really ready for $5 or $10 million, right? So the ecosystem's kind of even smaller, but you have so many people ready to pounce on it. So talk to as many people now as you can, even if you're not ready for pre-seed. If you're ready in 6 months to a year, hopefully you know some VCs already, or you're going to talk to these guys maybe in a couple minutes here. And if you are a pre-seed company and you're almost ready for an A, maybe in a year after everything launches, and you think you're going to gain traction, start talking to those VCs that can give you $5 to $10 million today, because it's going to take you some time.
Is that the typical round size for these kinds of companies? $1 million to $2 million for seed and 5 to 10 for A, or have you seen smaller or larger?
See, I mean, there was a great article in Pando Daily a couple of days ago that was talking about seeds are now $2 million rounds, right? So there's this whole group of pre-seed funds that are forming, which used to just do the deals that we used to call seed deals, right? So the 700K, 500K. So seed deals are inflating. I think I'm based in San Francisco, so our ecosystem's a complete crazy outlier, right? We hear of $4 million seed rounds all the time, so I don't know. One thing I'd say real quickly, this might be dangerous in Southern California. Y Combinator's winter 2016 applications just opened. And I think the best thing that anyone could do is go to YC, right? I just came back from demo day, and you've got a bunch of amazing startups pushed by amazing investors and advisors that get to demo day and have a ton of really good investors falling over themselves. And the truth is, they're on track to have 4 companies in every batch end up being sort of on track to become billion-dollar businesses. So there are if you have the inkling of an idea and the inkling of a team and are thinking of like, gee, how do I go and start this, and you're committed to it, you could do worse than going to YC.
And it's probably an important follow-up point too is for anyone who's not familiar with how an accelerator works, YC invests in the companies that go through the accelerator, as does Boost. Mm-hmm. So you go through the program, and you get a check at the end, but you have to get in the program.
Well, you don't necessarily get a check at the end.
Yeah.
A lot of companies do. They get company, when you go through YC or Boost at the end of the program, you do have a presentation day, a demo day. And at both and other accelerators, there are a number of investors in the crowd, and it's important to capture their imagination, their attention, so that you can have that follow-up meeting. It sort of does what we were talking about earlier. It is that warm introduction, because then investors can come to me or my partners at Boost and say, what do you know about these guys? And we can say, over the last 90 days, they've really demonstrated tenacity, they've really shown that they're resilient, and we're happy to vouch for them. The same with YC. And I just would like to add, too, in terms of the how, it's really important to know what type of investors may invest in your company. So if you're looking for $500,000, don't spend all of your time approaching companies that just historically haven't done it. If they don't operate in your space, it's normally a waste of time. And if you're looking for earlier money, an idea, unless you have that track record, normally isn't good enough. Neither is a prototype or a demo. So build something that a small group of people really love and they're passionate about, and you can show some traction, and that's what people get excited about. And if you're doing that, you'll find that in that small core group of people that love your product, some of those people will know investors, and that's how you find that warm introduction.
So quick show of hands, who in the audience has been through an accelerator? So I very much believe we're a community startup. So if you saw a hand go up and you're interested in learning more about an accelerator, about an experience, find that person and ask them about it. Because it is a way to get started if you're stuck for a next step. Where was I? So I'm going to ask a technology question, and it's kind of related to the investment question, but I'm a big believer in that there's not a lot that's really new, and that a lot of this technology is not new. And I point back to, I looked up before I came here, Jaron Lanier in the 80s and 90s, who was working on VR startups. I look all the way back to my ViewMaster, which I was absolutely addicted to and was a 1960s, 1970s form of virtual reality. What's different this time? Why are we ready to accelerate this whole process? Why are billions of dollars going to flow into VR startups?
The first time I put the Vive on, my heart dropped, right? And I had butterflies at the same time. And I realized that terrible things are going to come from this, but amazing things are going to come from it at the same time, right? And I think it's just, look at this event here today at VRLA, what, 2,500 people, 3,000 people, all so excited about VR. And I don't know what it is. I think that we're realizing that maybe we can explore the universe in ways that we haven't ever done before, so we all can kind of feel like explorers and pioneers. And you know, it's just forecasting. I don't think that we've seen something this incredible since TV was developed, since cars were developed, since airplanes were developed, since the internet was developed, but it's happening all at once with VR at the same time. That's how I feel about it.
I think Moore's law is that, like, human beings are really bad at exponential growth, right? Like, we can't project it in our brains very well. And Moore's law is our friend, and what's really cool is the smartphone changed everything, right? So the smartphone is the reason that anyone had any need to build a phone display this big that had lots and lots of pixels on it. The smartphone is the only reason that accelerometers, which help you track motion, are ridiculously cheap, right? The smartphone is the reason all of these things happened. And so what you have is the smartphone made all of these things really, really cheap. That's why Palmer was able to take a disemboweled Samsung device and turn it into an Oculus, right? And so I think you have that with all of a sudden, remember, all of this stuff was possible, right? Ford and Boeing and all of these guys have had VR simulations that would blow your mind. It's just, they were boring as hell and we never saw them because, when you're building something to help model an aircraft and you're spending $1 million on the computer, you kind of don't do fun stuff, right? You build planes. But all of a sudden, as the graphics card in my computer rivals a supercomputer only 5 or 10 years ago, that changes the game. So I think we've been waiting for VR for a long time, and I think that the thing that's driven it is some combination of Moore's law and the smartphone are kind of the two major reasons that today is different.
So it feels different, which is very often an indicator when you have a lot of experienced people all nodding their heads. I put an Oculus on once, and it was Exactly like you said, it just felt different.
Better than Virtual Boy?
I haven't seen Virtual Boy. I tried Cardboard, and that at the very least is a nice little marketing campaign for VR, because it's kind of cool, but I can never get the phone to stay in the cardboard just right. Before we're totally out of time, I thought we'd take a stab at questions, as long as you raise your hand very carefully and use your outside voice when you stand up. Gentleman right here. And I'll repeat the question.
All right. Well, I think I can talk. Just a question on, you mentioned there's not a lot of new technology right now. It seems like a lot of investment attention is going into almost content plays right now, and which is more interesting now than 3 years ago. I was just wondering, from your standpoint, are you in fact seeing investments on your end in companies primarily for the content, and do you think that is something that that will continue?
So I don't know that it's just content. I think that a lot of investment that's happening right now, there's been big investment in hardware, and there's continued investment in hardware from a VR perspective, but right now the software that's being funded is content development tools. So things that allow other people to build in VR are being funded, because we think that until there's a lot of companies and a lot of consumers, that's sort of the next step in the sweet spot. So content from game and entertainment studios, aren't, I think, being funded as quickly at this point.
Yeah, I think we've seen billions of dollars go into hardware, and what you've seen then is some of those platforms and some of those hardware makers also fund up native content on their devices to drive hardware sales. So there's some strategics that are actually funding the content right now. Some VCs and some accelerators are looking at some content. Everybody wants to create, the Halo for VR or the Final Fantasy for VR. That's that killer app that actually drives units and installs.
Yeah, I think we're seeing, I've seen sort of both sides of the spectrum. I think that the challenge with a lot of the content deals, and there are, Jaunt and companies like that are building great content businesses, they're just really hit driven, and it's hard to pick hits, and investors are bad at picking hits. And so I think, you're more likely to have traction with investors if you're saying, look, here's a really hard problem that I'm solving that either a ton of other developers are going to use, or that a consumer or an enterprise is going to go use directly, and to which they attach a real ROI. Content's amazing. It's just really hard to invest in.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got a question. We'll close with this one. So you get a VR pitch, and the presenter's going through the pitch deck. What are you looking for? What's the one thing you're looking for that's most important, that is going to tell you this is something I might consider investing in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've seen a lot of pitches. So that's tough, because for me it really is two different things. But if there's one thing that I have to see for sure, is that the entrepreneur is going to do it no matter what. That they have the passion, determination, and drive, and that they're not going to quit. It's always important from investing in startup companies, but in VR even more so, because we're unsure when that consumer demand is going to get there. So we tell all of our companies right now, just don't die. There's a lot of customers coming, but if you die too soon, you don't get to live out your vision.
What's the other one? I just came up.
Is the idea even plausible?
Okay.
So I steal Peter Thiel's question, which is what is the one thing that you believe that nobody else believes, right? So what I want to understand is, what is your crazy contrarian thesis? Because the reality is, you don't make money believing the same thing everyone else believes. That's what the market does, right? So if you want to go and make a lot of money, you fundamentally have to believe that the world is crazy about something and you're right about it, and I want to understand what that is. And if you can articulate that super clearly, and there's a real market attached to that, and that you've got the drive and the passion, you're doing the company for the right reason, then that's super exciting as an investor.
Clinton?
So the one thing above all else is just the team. Is that team amazing enough? Are they that one team out of that 3,000 that we see that is going to just knock our socks off, and we have real faith in that they're going to be able to persevere through a lot of hard times and be able to, raise the funds, have the technological prowess to actually build out what it is that they say they're going to do, have the experience to be able to do it, and has their life really led up to this point? And is that person really in it to win it? I mean, I don't want to I think make this too small of a thing, because a lot of people are kind of entrepreneurs that we see who are just like, yeah, we kind of want to test this out, maybe this is my plan B, but if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go back to my corporate job or whatever. The real entrepreneurs that we see who are really in it and are super passionate about it, they're obsessed with it. They can't do anything else. That's the only thing that they can do. And they would like to do other things. They'd like to have a regular job maybe, but this is the thing that they're obsessed about, and they have to make it happen. And if you see that repeat process of other entrepreneurs and great entrepreneurs in the world, like the Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks, or whoever, they're obsessed with one or two things and making it really big. And that's what we look for.
All right. David, you want to take a swing at it? I know you're not an investor. I'm sure you see a lot of pitches.
We have an easy job. We just wait for these guys to filter them out, and then we take them on when they're ready for their Series A. No, but I think that of anything, I think that the passion is definitely what at least I attach myself to and what I enjoy being a part of. So absolutely, believe in the idea, go 100%. If somebody says that they have a second job, we're usually a little hesitant, right? Because that doesn't mean that you're necessarily all in. So go all in, love it, and maybe you should wait until you're ready to go all in, because maybe you don't have the right idea for you. So
the thing to walk away from this panel is, it's not just about the technology, it's about the commitment as well, and the passion. Okay, can we thank our panel? Thanks very much.